No.
My podcast.
No, you can't do it that early. You gotta talk about something. I'd be like, bibble babble, bibble babble,
I
bibble babble.
I am. I'm talking about my podcast.
Yeah,
My
but
podcast.
then later, Justy will get confused. He might fade in too soon. If he hears my podcast, it's my podcast. It's
Well, that's a problem for later Justy to solve.
bullshit. Listen, this ain't a bin moment. I don't leave that up to for Justy to. Woo! Hello, hello.
Hello? Hello?
How's it going? Hello.
It's good. I feel full of Jesus's love and warmth right now.
Been singing some hymns before the podcast.
Yeah, I've been hyping myself up, filling myself with the love and spirit of Jesus and spreading the message.
See, that's why we need Halavin, and because then
I'm
you guys could go on religious talk. Then I could be an
not
edgy
really
little man.
religious. Just like I don't know, like school was a very religious place. Like you'd always like sing the Lord's Prayer every morning, and sometimes you'd sing it in Welsh as well. And like you would sing hymns, and you would talk about like I don't know, like I guess the principles from the Bible or like Aesop's fables and things like that. So like what? Oh, sorry. Ben said bug fables, but I didn't quite hear him. I just heard something. I was like, what?
Bug fables.
Yeah. So
Would
I don't know, school at least primary school was very religious. In secondary school it was more like don't bully people, don't get in a car full of people who are drunk, don't do drugs, have safe sex, or don't have sex at all. And like I don't know, secondary school is very different, but primary school was very religious.
you say that those lessons were good for you? Do you feel like they taught you a lesson? Or do you think it was kind of wasted, you know?
Um, no, I mean, I might not have listened to those lessons, but I think I definitely carried around some of the morality from it.
Yeah. Do you think, I don't know, because like for me, religion is very it's a very iffy thing. You know, it's kind of just it's like a gun. You know, people can do what they want with it. It can be used for shooting animals, or it could be used for shooting people. That's kind of how
I
religion
think
is. You can use it for anything, really.
I I've looked into quite a few things. Like, the problem is that the Bible was created by powerful men in the sense that there was, you know, scriptures and scholarly things that they found, but they sort of like adapted them and changed the interpretation to what suited them. Like I
Right.
can't remember exactly, but like Mary Magdalene, some of the gospel says that she was um you know, a very rich woman who gave to Jesus and Jesus loved her and things like that. And then there's others that say that she's a whore. There's others that say that she was possessed by like demons or something. And like the scripture was written or collected by men, and only these seemingly the interpretations that suited them went into the Bible. It's just kind of like a book full of like additions and revisions,
Yeah.
like that kind of portrayed the message that they wanted as as I guess a form of control
Yeah.
over the
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah. Absolutely. I
I
would agree with
I
that.
think at its core, religion is good at its core, but people twist it. You know, it's like man shall not lie with another man or something, and people say that that means don't be gay or whatever. But you know, a lot of religion is also about loving one another and forgiveness and that. So people will use it as a weapon in the way that they see fit to suit their own ideology, which is where I think religion can be dangerous.
Yeah. I think I don't know. It can be good for some people, but overall, at least for me, I see it as a negative. It feels like a lack of oneself, like a lack of determination and responsibility in one's life. It's very much, well, I'm going to give in to the Lord, let them take control, let them guide me, and I can understand wanting a helping hand in life and all that, but at least for me, it seems like you know, you eventually get to the point where's the you in it, It's
Yeah.
it's like those people who make one thing about their life, It's like people who smoke pot. Like I remember in high school, a lot of people who smoked weed. They basically just made it their entire life. Like it was weed this, weed that. It's like I don't know.
It was their whole like identity.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what happens with religion as well. Is that people just lose their identity to it, and I don't know. I guess that's fine for some people, but I don't know. On the outside, it just seems a little sad. Is all.
I think for some people, like people with a lapse in morality, to look to something to guide them morally, it can be a good thing. Like I think like some people when, they go to jail, they convert to like Christianity or what have you, and it can be good for them because it can put them on a better path in life. But then there are some people, who they abandon their children or whatever because their children come out gay and they think, oh, that's against the Lord and all that. But I guess religion is so broad. There's like even within Christianity, like they can't even agree because you've got like different schools. You've got like what kind of remember like Eucharist, and then you've got like evangelists, and you've got Catholics and Protestants. Like even though they all follow the same God, the same Jesus, they kind of all have different rules in which that they believe in. So they can't even like agree amongst themselves, if you get me.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's a different variety pack. It's all kind of the same, but it has a little bit of a different variety for each one. And how they worship and what rules they have. You know.
Yeah, I find that a little bit odd. It's like it's under a broad umbrella, it's the same religion, but there's so many like differences. Um, like an ex-friend, they that they're more about Jesus than God, which I find a little bit strange. Because for me, God would be above Jesus, but in their brand of Christianity, it's all about Jesus.
See, and
And
and that's another thing is that I've heard people say that you know some people say Jesus is the Son of God, which is, what I've heard most of the time. But
yeah,
there's some people who say that Jesus is a different part of God, so
yeah,
therefore he's God, but a different part, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. The I talked about this with Halvin, or I guess I kind of debated him a little bit about it, but um basically he said that everyone has already sinned, the whole Adam and Eve stuff. Apparently we're all
yeah,
still paying for that. Um
yeah,
and then what was it? Jesus gave his life, but he kind of didn't. That's what gets me the most is that like uh Jesus gave up his life for everyone's sin, right?
yeah.
Um but apparently we're all still full of sin or something like that. Like
Yeah, we're all suffering for the sins that we never even committed ourselves.
yeah, exactly. That's what I hate about it. It's like, it's like your granddad, you know, took on a debt or something like that. So now you have to pay it off. It's like, why the fuck is that my deal?
Yeah, we're not the sins of our parents or anyone who came before us. We're our own person with our own blank slate. We shouldn't be in debt to anything that came before us because we have no control over it.
Yeah. And that's why I don't that's why I personally don't like religions. Like it's not just Christianity, it's a lot of them. It's very, you know, you don't have control. You need to let us control you, And it's, you know, I can understand that there's some people that look to it and they say, "Oh, well, now I've acquired morals," but I feel like that should be left up to the individual. Believe more in yourself, to be the type of person you want to be. Why do you have to fear or love a god in order to, um, know not to beat your wife up every day?
Yeah, yeah. I had quite a few arguments with an ex-friend because they basically said the reason why I've suffered in life is because of Eve, and I must have in some way committed sin, and therefore I'm suffering from my own sin. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think like 3 or 4 year olds are even capable of committing sin. Even if they do, they don't know any better, and therefore I don't think they deserve to suffer. And I was like, how am I held responsible for the actions of someone who lived like supposedly 6,000 years ago? Like, how is that on me? How is that my fault?
Yeah,
I didn't do it.
exactly. And another thing to bring up with that is that, you said that, you know, I don't think that a 3 to 4 year old is even capable of sinning. You know, I brought that
Yeah,
up with Halavin before. I said, well, if everyone is born into the world with sin, then what about, babies that are either aborted, or they don't survive the first few weeks of life? What happens to them? Do they go to hell? Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
he's
like, oh,
oh
so carry on.
oh, I was just gonna finish it up with saying that he said that uh basically if you have no knowledge of the religion, then you
Mm,
can't be someone who sinned of it. So technically, because I also brought this up to him, I said that so if someone went out and murdered a lot of people, raped them, did all kind of vile stuff, and then they got amnesia, technically they
yeah,
would, go to heaven or not go to hell at least. And he had to ponder that, which, I like that. At least he's not outright denying it or something.
yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, because as far as I always understood, it was, everybody has a place in heaven with God. So I said, what about people who follow a different religion? Like, he was like, no, they go to hell. I was like, okay. What about people who aren't religious? Where do they go? They go to hell. I was like, what? So there's a place in God's kingdom for everybody, but there isn't really. There's stipulations. I was like, that's kind of a bit shady, don't you think? He was like, no, 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 no. They have to accept Jesus into their life or they go to hell. I was like, well, that's not really a place for everybody in his God's kingdom, then, is it? I was like, that's a place in heaven if you believe in Jesus and if you do this and if you do that. And like in the case of sin, I suppose you can atone for your sins, right? So if I murder someone and then go to the church and say, "Oh, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I've killed my mother or something." And if he blesses me and forgives me, do then I go to heaven? Like what? I don't really get it. I
Yeah,
don't really understand.
that's what I said. Halavan's basically the only reference I have for it, but he said that basically you can, what is it? As long as you accept Jesus, you know,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter when. Like you can even accept him and then just not really change your way, you know.
yeah,
You'll get into heaven, and it doesn't matter. Like it's not even like a tier system. It's not like, oh well, I went out and I saved a bunch of kittens. I fed the homeless. I did all this. Like that person and someone who just was like, oh, I accept Jesus into my life. Apparently, they're on the same level. It's not even like an
it's
amount
not
of
like
goodness.
Dante's Inferno where there are tears to hell.
Yeah,
So by comparison, you could maybe equate that there are tiers to heaven. It's just if you get a ticket to heaven, you're all equal.
Yeah. Also, one second, I have to take a call. BRB.
Okay, no worries. Um, there's no one to talk to.
Okay, I'm back. Hello.
Ben was like, "You don't have dead air to talk," and I'm like, "Who am I supposed to talk to?"
You're supposed to provide your opinion and just be like, you know, podcast listeners, I gotta say, I agree or disagree or something like that. You gotta basically turn into a schizomaniac.
I didn't know how long you were going to be gone for, so I could have just started like talking to myself, and then I don't know. You could have been sitting there waiting for your end.
Yeah, I could have just. Well, I would just probably joined back and been like, "Bleh, bleh, bleh," you know, yeah. I My mom is bringing me food in about an hour, even though
Oh, nice.
I say, don't do this, don't do this,
Don't do it. I'm a virgin.
don't do it. I'm a virgin. Charlie, will you ever have kids?
Um, I would like to, but I want to make sure that I can actually provide for children. In
Right.
my current state, I can barely provide for myself, let alone an innocent child who would, need me to do absolutely everything. Like people are like, "Oh, you're 31 now. You should have had kids by now." And I'm like, "What could I have given that kid? I would have been dragging that kid up rather than raising it. It's selfish of me to have a kid that fulfills some kind of fantasy or something that I have in my head about raising a nice little loving family. Like, yeah, I could have selfishly had kids, but there's nothing I could have provided them other than like love or whatever. And as much as I would like to think that love is enough, I don't think it is. I want, a safe house for them.
Yeah,
Um, I want to,
applies.
yeah, I want to give them at least the best basics I can provide, like good food, good house. Um, I don't want to just drag a kid up so I can be like, "Oh, my life is fulfilled now. I have kids." You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. It's, I think that's the way a lot of people think now. Instead of just going at it and doing whatever. I think a lot of people are more conscious about having kids or not and the position they're in. Because I would agree with that. I I don't. I feel like I wouldn't mind raising it, having a kid and raising them, but uh, I don't know. I don't feel mentally or emotionally there. I feel like
I think emotionally I could be there, but mentally, I struggle with my day-to-day life as is without, a little innocent child. I I I I just don't think that I could provide the best environment for that child to grow up and, be well nurtured. And I just if I had kids like right at this very moment, it would be for selfish reasons. Because I'd want to fulfill that goal of having a little family and a picket fence. And I've always thought, well, my family are a bit shit, so one day I'll have my own family, and I'll learn from what's happened to me, and make better. But like that's not a good enough reason on its own to have a kid. I have to be, as far as I'm concerned, I have to be stable. And people said it's never a right time to have a kid, but I certainly think there's a wrong time to have a kid. And that's where I'm at and have been for most of my life. There's not necessarily a right time to have a kid, but there's certainly a wrong time. And I think me having a kid would just be for my own selfish desires. And I don't want to put a kid through that. I don't.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree that there's definitely a wrong time to have a kid. You know, again, I think with every parent, with their first kid, they try and do it the correct way and do it this way and that way, but eventually they give in. Sometimes they do the wrong thing. They're like, yeah, well, I just spent hours trying to keep this kid quiet, and now they're, screaming at the top of their lungs for candy. I guess they can just have it because I'm too tired. But yeah, I think
In some ways, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say it's definitely, you know, it's hard to project the future and to imagine anything but the best for your kid, but I think eventually a lot of people compromise and they, kind of give in.
I definitely feel my body clock ticking, especially when people like to remind me. They're like, "What are you doing with your life? You should be settled down by now. You should be having kids." And I'm like, "That's according to your schedule, but not mine." But in many ways, I feel like I already had a kid because I was 12 when my sister came along, and I had to do a lot of the parenting for my sister.
Yeah,
My mum didn't like it a whole lot because I'd be like, "No, come on now, you have to sit down, you have to do your homework." And my mum be like, "Leave her alone, stop picking on her." No, I'm not picking on her. She has homework to do. I'm here to help. I want to help. Or I'd be like, "No, no, you can't have ice cream. Eat all your veggies on your plate first, and if you've got enough room, then you can have ice cream." And mum would be like, "No, leave her alone. If she's done with the food, let her have ice cream." And I'm like, "Oh, I give up." But, like, I did a lot of like, my mum used to go out, like, all the time, so I was always left on my own with my sister
right.
to look after her, so in many ways, I feel like, in some regards, I've already had a child.
Yeah, and it's kind of tough to deal with as well. It's like, you know, you were robbed of having your kind of childhood and being able to be carefree and stuff for the most part, because you had to take care of your sister.
I wouldn't I remember once I got social services got involved, and they offered for me to go and be fostered and or adopted. And I was tempted, but I didn't want to see my sister grow up without me.
Yeah,
I wanted to be someone in my life that my sister could always rely on and would always have, whereas I didn't necessarily have that person growing up. So I didn't want to miss out on any milestones. I wanted to be there for her and always have someone that she could turn to. Now she's kind of an adult, she reckons that she thinks that I wasn't really always there for her. And I just said, I think a lot of that was to do with how we were both being parented. I said, like, I felt like the black sheep. Like, I had a DS that I had for Christmas, and I had one game, and that's all I had for all the years that I had a DS. And my mum wanted me to lend it to my sister, and I was like, "She's 3 years old, she doesn't know how to look after this equipment." But my mum gave it to my sister while I was at school, and my sister destroyed it. She'd wrecked all the screen, there was spaghetti hoops all over it, and I was really upset. Come Christmas time, my sister gets a brand new DS and loads of games, and I'm like, "Well, where's my DS? Where's my games?" They're like, "Oh, stop ruining Christmas," and all of that, and I'm like, "Well, you destroyed my DS and my one game, and she's getting and I had this TV that I'd had since I was 10. It was my Christmas present when I was 10. Something went wrong with my sister's TV. No one even asked me. My sister had it. She had it for about 3 months, she destroyed it, and she had a brand new TV. I was like, what the hell? And I remember I had holes in my shoes, and I was going to school or going to college, and I needed a new pair of shoes. And I remember asking, "Can I have a new pair of shoes?" No. And then my sister walks in with a brand new pair, £40. High School Musical trainers. And I'm like, she's never even seen High School Musical. Why has she got a £40 pair of trainers and I've got nothing? So I was very jealous of my sister, and I think because of the age gap as well, like there was a lot of things going on in my life that my sister wouldn't understand, and I never spoke to her about it because she was too young and she didn't need my problems.
Right.
So she would often see me in a state of like distress or anger or what have you. So maybe I wasn't always the person I hoped I would be for my sister. So my sister sees it differently to how I do.
Do you
And that
think
hurts. Carry on, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, do you think that maybe the reason why your sister doesn't see the relationship you do because you're kind of put between having to be both, a motherly kind of figure as well as a sister? Because, a mom and a sister kind of relationship is a lot different, you know? With a sister relationship, you kind of get to be more carefree. You get to have your little spouts, and all that kind of
Mm.
stuff. But as a mother, you're supposed to take care of that person and you're supposed to nurture them and make sure they're, you know, everything's all
I
good with them.
I think I took the motherly role upon myself. No one necessarily asked it of me. I just instinctively took that role and tried to guide my sister the best way that I could, making sure she eats her food properly and has a good diet, make sure she does her schoolwork and just things like that. Like, no one asked that of me. I took that upon myself because that's the person I wanted to be for my sister, a positive influence in her life. But my mum would push back against that a lot. She'd be like, "Oh, stop trying to control her." And I'm like, I'm not trying to control her. I'm trying to help her. Um, and I definitely was sisterly in the sense that I was quite jealous.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't her fault, but I was just, I was still a teenager myself at this point. So my emotionals and my emotionals, my emotion and my mentality and stuff was still quite immature. So I was like, oh, she gets everything and I get nothing and I'm struggling. I'm still a bit like that now
Yeah.
because my mum and my stepfather, they saved thousands and thousands of pounds for my sister and they never did anything like that for me. So my sister has savings to fall back on and I didn't have nothing. I went out into the world and everything that I built for myself was off of my own back.
Yeah.
And again, nothing about my sister. It's not her fault in any way. But I still do harbor a little bit of that, like, I'm the black sheep. It's like I'm the child that was too old to love or whatever. So I got, like, pushed out a lot.
You were basically used as the tool of the family, in a sense.
I guess, and, like, I don't know, it's just hard for me because my sister has a very close relationship with my stepfather, and me and my stepfather are quite estranged.
Right.
And I don't know, it's just hard because I'm glad for my sister in so many ways because she had a healthier upbringing than me.
Right.
But I still have that terrible hard done by attitude where I'm like, it's not fair.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's like, she didn't have to grow up with the same horrors that you had to. Why
Yeah.
why couldn't it have been the same for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's also kind of like a slap in the face when she says that you weren't there for her and stuff like that, you know.
She does recognize in some ways, like we've had heart to hearts and I've explained a little bit about what happened in my life and things.
Right.
But she's very like, oh, that's in the past. You got to get over it now. You got to live your life for you. And I'm like, yes, I do, but it's very hard to not carry around those things. If you haven't been through those things, it's a lot easier to look at it and think, okay, you need to get over it. I would love to be able to get over it, but no amount of counseling or tablets or whatever takes away that pain or that trauma or suffering.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get out of. It's not as easy as, okay, live your life now. Because I've tried that many points and I've just come back around in a circle. So but she's still so young. She's only 19. And I remember being 19 and I kind of had that outlook on life too. If you want something in life, you got to go get it. But I slowly got beaten. Life beat me into submission and beat that positivity out of me eventually because I tried to go out in the world and grab life by the balls and, it just teabagged me.
Yeah. It basically, you know, fucking. It basically, I would say, probably reinforced, that kind of idea, or that kind of that mindset. You know, it kind of beat down and reinforced like a much more deterrent kind of mindset where basically, you know, you can't do anything, or when you try, everything goes wrong, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, because when I was going through my schooling, my mum was determined for me to get a job, and I was like, absolutely not. I said, no disrespect, but I am not being any other person in this family. I'm not being on benefits. I'm not popping out kids with this person and that person. I'm not being that person. I'm not just going to get a shitty job and just work that for the rest of my life or no job at all. I said, I'm going to get my qualifications under my belt and I'm going to make something of myself.
Yeah.
So I started with my college education, did that, then she wanted me to get a job again. I was like, absolutely no way. So I went and put myself through university. And I really thought I thought as much as university is really hard for me and I'm struggling financially, mentally, absolutely the whole world is just shitting on me right now. But this is going to open so many doors for me. I'm going to get my degree and it's going to become worth it. And I got my degree and I really thought the doors were going to open for me. I really did. I thought I'd be like, I'd apply for jobs and I'd be sifting through acceptance letters from them and I'd have to choose which job I wanted. But I soon fell quickly on my ass, every day trying for a job, a whole year, didn't get anywhere. And finally, I got a shitty job in a call center.
Right.
And, you know, I worked there for a year and I hated it. And then I got a good job and I lost it. And eventually, all that ambition and like fire and determination after so many try again, lose my job, or something happens and I have to leave the job or whatever you, I just become beaten down into this person that I never wanted to be.
Right.
But I'm the person I just struggle now. I just really struggle. Every day I struggle. Every day I get up and I struggle with basic tasks. I struggle to feed myself, wash myself, get out of bed. It's just even the most bare necessities to life have become hard for me. So I'm not that enthusiastic young go getter anymore because that's just, as far as I'm concerned, life has beat that out of me. I've become I'm so sick of dragging myself up off the floor and trying again just to be in exactly the same position.
Right. And so I got like two questions for you. So the first would be like, um, do you feel like you're kind of in tar right now? Like no matter how much you try and struggle out of it, it's all just, you're just stuck there. And then the second would be that, um, you know, did you have the same feeling of like when you finally went to college or university and you
Mhm.
finally got your degree? Did you have the feeling that life was finally going to give you like a break, like a final chance? Like everything was supposed to become at least a little bit more easier, and then life just
Yeah,
kind of hit you with no, no, you got to keep on struggling for like the rest of your life.
Yeah, basically, I got my degree and I thought, "I've done it. I've made it. I don't know what to do next, but I know the first thing is get a job."
Right.
And I really thought that life wasn't gonna be easy, but it was gonna be a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah.
And real life kicked me in the ass and said, "Ha, your degree means nothing
Right.
because you." And I ended up coming into these problems that I didn't know how to resolve. So one of them was, I'm limited by the fact I don't drive.
Yeah.
But I couldn't save enough money to learn to drive, then buy a car, and then, the fuel, the insurance. I was like, even if I pass my test, there's still no way that I can get a car, which limited a lot of my job opportunities. A lot of the jobs that I was qualified to do require me to either have a license and or a car. And I was like, well, I don't have those things.
Right.
And then some jobs require you to have additional qualifications. And I'm like, well, I don't have the money to do that. So it's like, even when people were like, well, how do you get out of this situation? I'm like, well, ideally, I learn to drive, I get a car, which opens up my world a lot more. So, and I'm also won't be so taxing on me when I do have a job because instead of doing 4 hours traveling to and from work, I can cut it down to an hour's traveling. So, 4 hours extra onto your 10-hour day is a lot. Like, I felt like I was doing a 14-hour job, not a 10-hour job because of all the traveling time.
Yeah.
So, it was just it was just every time I see maybe a solution, I require money. And I just feel like you said, I'm in tar. I'm just in a sticky situation where everything has a catch 22. I need a job to get a car, but I kind of need a car to get a job,
Right.
or I need a job to do an extra qualification, but that it's just a cycle that I'm in and I just don't know how to get out of
Yeah.
without randomly falling into a windfall of money where suddenly I can take 20 lessons and then buy a car, and it's just not feasible. So I just feel like I'm stuck in the same situation where I might get a job, and if I can hold on to that job, amazing. But I don't have that confidence in myself anymore either.
Right. And it's
And
like,
the, and my mum, sorry to interrupt, but my mum still needs a carer as well. So even if I get a job, all those caring responsibilities will still be on me, and that's just gonna tax the shit out of me.
yeah, I was gonna say that, you know, even if you do get a job, that means that any benefits or anything that you earn right now will be gone. You won't have that, and then
Yeah.
say you're doing good at the job, but then something happens and you know you have to leave it. Well, then there you go. You're even more fucked than you were before. So it's like you know,
I just keep going in cycles, and I'm just sick of the cycle that I'm not happy, but I'm content in my current situation because I still get money. I get to decide my own cycle in a way because I get up when I want to relatively. I go to bed when I want to relatively, and I get to decide what I want to do with my day relatively.
right?
So it's like I'm not happy and I'm not thriving and I'm not where I want to be in life, but I'm also kind of comfortable because I know where I'm at with it.
Yeah, it's better to be comfortable in the shit that you do know than to go out and explore and find a deeper well that you get stuck in, something like that.
The thing is, as well, because I'm living under my mum's roof, if I get a job, she gets less money. So, and I just don't think I have it in me to do a full-time job anymore. If I was going to do a job, it's probably a part-time job.
Right,
And the money that I would earn from a part-time job, plus what my mum would lose, so she would expect me to give to her, I'd be no better off than I am right now. In fact, I may even be worse off.
right,
And I'd be way more drained because I'd be going to work 3 or 4 days a week and I'd still be expected to come home and look after my mum. So I'm just in this like dog shit kind of cycle where my mum is just at that age where she needs caring for. If I do get a job, I'll lose the benefits that I have now, and she'll get less money overall. So, I'd be paying to make up what she's losing. I'd still have to look after her. Like, there's just no winning, if you get me.
Yeah, there's no escape from it until
Yeah.
something wild comes in out of nowhere else, out of the blue, I suppose.
Best case scenario, like maybe Ben comes over to live, so then there'll be a dual wage coming in, and I could probably still maybe then look after my mom. But that's not a situation I'm in right now. So I'm just stuck where I am right now, and I don't love it because people always go, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a carer for my mom." Um, I don't love it because I went through what 6, 7 years of training,
Right,
and 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 I'm exactly that in that one spot in life that I never wanted to be. I'm exactly the person that I worked my fucking ass off not to be.
right. And it kind of sounds like your mom gets assistance from the government, but is there no option, like, it might sound a little cruel, but is there no option for like a, uh, not really retirement home, but a care center for her, thing like that?
Yeah, but she'd never go in it.
Well,
She's not probably not quite at that threshold yet where she requires it.
right, that makes sense. I was just thinking because, like, you know, and I doubt that, uh, say she does go to one, I doubt you would be able to stay in the house, right?
Yeah, no, I'd lose. I would probably either have to take over the tenancy, which I couldn't afford,
Right.
or I'd be homeless essentially.
Yeah. Unless you move in like roommates or stuff like that, I'm guessing.
There's not a lot of that in me. Where I live, there's not a lot of room sharing and stuff. There perhaps is in Swansea, but even then, I remember looking into it before, and it's like £200 to £300 a month just for a room, which is nearly all of the wage I get right now.
Right.
So there's no means really of me even affording that.
Yeah. And uh would a part-time job also be like the same wage you're getting now, or would it just be like maybe a little bit extra or whatever?
It'd probably be. It depends on the hours and what job I do.
I'd
It'd
say like
probably
part-time.
be a little bit more than
Right.
I get now, but providing that I'm living under my mum's roof, that extra I get she'd want off me to help provide for the house. So I wouldn't financially really be any better off because she'd be losing money. I'd have to give that money to her to, keep up the maintenance of the house. So it's like I'm just and I'm just, taxing myself mentally and physically and whatever, but a situation that's not necessarily any better.
Oh no, I was thinking of it more of like a
If I
fantasy
moved out,
kind of, yeah, if she went to a care facility where, she would be taken care of, and that takes that off of you. um of course you wouldn't be able to live where you are now, but if you went to live,
a part-time job just wouldn't cover it. It just because I've lived on my own before on a full-time wage,
yeah,
and I was just about making it. I was just about
but
surviving.
that was by
Um,
yourself, right?
yeah, that's by myself. Yeah,
Yeah. So I was thinking of like, if you did find a roommate scenario, which isn't the best, especially as you said, having to pay that much just for a room, that's
yeah,
not even including the other expenses. But,
yeah.
you know, I'm just
I
thinking
think
outside a little bit.
I think even with a roommate on a part-time wage and considering the debts that I'm still paying right now, think I'd really be on the wire. I think I'd be really struggling.
Right. So do you think that like, say Ben was there as well, do you think
Mhm.
that would ever be an option in the future? Maybe.
Oh, yeah, like I've said to Ben, like, if we get our own place with a wage that he would earn probably from a full-time job, I would assume, because a full-time job over here is still far less hours than his full-time job over there.
Right.
Like, the difference of, like, 15 hours or something a week, you'd be doing less. So on with his wage, and then if I did a part-time job, we'd be we'd be pretty comfortable. We
Yeah,
wouldn't be, like, thriving and, having takeaways every night or anything, but we would be at least comfortable.
yeah. Things would be at least, a lot better than they are now. And then,
Yeah.
because of an improved quality of life, maybe, through some amount of I know you've said before that you've gone to therapists for therapy and it
Mhm.
hasn't really helped you that much, but maybe once you're out of this kind of slog, and you're able to maybe receive more counseling or therapy help, maybe it'll boost your self confidence and your mental capabilities, your mental health enough where maybe you could even try and go back to doing the degree that you set out for. Like I know you already got it, but I mean like a job within that field.
Yeah, definitely. Um, but it's just so difficult where I am right now
Yeah.
because it's quite a toxic environment.
Yeah.
Some days are absolutely fine, some weeks are fine, but then there are the, like, days or weeks where it's just an absolute calamity of, like, toxicness, and it's just really hard to thrive in that kind of environment. Like, since I've been here with Ben, I would say, apart from, like, that a situation where that person messaged me again and that really affected my mental health, and just a few stresses here and there, I would say that I'm pretty positive and I'm pretty happy overall. I'm comfortable and I'm content. So when I'm taken out of that environment, I can do relatively well.
Yeah.
It's just in that environment, it's quite hard to be positive.
And there's, you know, even while you are on this kind of vacation sorts,
Mhm.
it's not like you have the opportunity or chance to, like, of course you have the opportunity or chance to kind of seek a way to improve your situation, but it's as you said, there's really no easy way of doing that. There's not really anything you can do.
Yeah, there's a lot of catch 22s. Like, for everything you do, there's a price to pay.
Yeah, there's no. It's a what is it? It's yeah, it's literally just tar. You're just stuck there. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of sucky about life in general because I know that you know that's how it is over there, but it's also the same over here. There's like if you don't have certain uh qualities or anything like that, you're just kind of stuck. Can't really do anything over here either.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat worse, I suppose, because you know we have to pay for a whole lot of our health and our just general things that you would think be a good thing, a necessity for us Americans, but kind of have to pay into it or whatever. I don't because of the state I live. My
Yeah.
state's kind of like similar to where you live, like not exactly one for one, but it's generally a lot more forgiving and a lot more pleasant to live in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that always, like, really blows my mind because, like, I'm asthmatic and I have, various health problems, and then, like, I find out, like, I had a friend in primary school who moved to America and he married an American woman. And he said something like, even with his job's copay or something, he still ends up paying something like $300 a month for his asthma pumps.
Yeah.
And I'm like, insane. Like, I just go to my doctor and just be like, hey, I run out my asthma pump and I just go and get it. And this, like, it's just crazy to me to think that even my like antidepressants or whatever, I'd probably expected to pay, I don't know, $30 to $40 a month, maybe more. And it's just like I'm already financially quite stressed. Like the burden of having to pay for, basic health needs on top of that, it just I don't know how I'd ever survive.
Yeah. It's um I think it's I don't know, I think with your degree, you could get a job where it's um it wouldn't be that bad, but if you're doing minimum wage kind of jobs, you're really screwed over here. And that's typically what a lot of people are working because no one has the money to afford a higher education because it's not free. So yeah, it's pretty tough to live in America if you don't have a higher education. But if you do, like you do, I
Yeah.
imagine it's at least tolerable, if anything.
I'm actually more qualified in America than I am here. Something to do with like the amount of credits or something that we study here in comparison. It means that I actually have a master's in psychology in America, whereas over here I just have a standard bachelor of science. Um, but it's still quite hard because for a lot of the jobs for my degree, I need a master's, and I applied to do a master's a couple of times. But I was just like, it's not really feasible because the loan that the government will give you, as soon as you finish your master's, you're required to start paying back.
Yeah,
And I financially, I just couldn't afford it. I think it's like £100 to £200 a month they charge you for the master's loan.
right.
I mean, yeah, technically I could get a job as well, but alongside it, because the masters you only do, I don't know, about 5 or 6 hours a week, maybe. It really depends, but you're not in study that much. You're mostly doing, coursework and things like that, or self study. But I, you know, I, I've applied it for it a few times and then I've talked myself out of it because, it's all right to assume that I could get a job at the end of my master's, but based on my knowledge of how that went with my bachelor's, Um, it's not really something I can afford to get myself into, having to pay 100 to £200 or whatever a month to repay my loan.
Yeah, exactly. It's you know why would you why would there even be an attempt to uh do that when currently you're not able to you're barely holding on there, I suppose.
I thought about doing a PGCE, which is funded. I think you get £20,000 a year in money to do it, and at the end of it, you essentially get a license to be able to teach. So I've thought about doing that a couple of times, but I know that realistically, to get a job in teaching, I'd need to be able to drive. So it's like, yeah, okay, I can do it for a year and I'll get money for doing it. But then I'm gonna be stuck for job prospects because I don't drive.
And there's no public transportation where you come. or-
There is, but it would be quite awkward.
Right. I I think that kind of applies to anyone who takes public transportation. I don't think anyone really wants to take it. I don't think anyone's getting on the bus and being like, "Yeah, fucking love this," I think it's very much man, I really wish I didn't have to sit next to this person who smells like sweat and, sadness.
It
But
it just really depends. Like if the job was say, mm, 10 miles away, then the bus journey would, it'd be probably 2 buses perhaps
Right.
there, back, and it wouldn't be so bad. But then if the job was maybe in, like, the Gower in Swansea, then that might be 3 or 4 buses that I would need to take just to get to work,
Yeah.
and then I necessarily get the time and all of that hoo-ha. So without a car, it's quite unlikely to be able um, to secure a position after the PGCE.
Right. Is there any chance? Is there like, because you know, I think you can look for most jobs that without having to be in a certain kind of, what is it, database or whatever. But is there any way you can look for those types of jobs around you? Like if there is any around you? No?
You mean for teacher?
Yeah, like within the 10-mile thing that you said.
There are, but I think they're few and far between, and they're already pretty contested,
Oh,
as in
gotcha.
there's already quite a few
There's a lot of people going after them.
applicants. Yeah,
Yeah, so then by the time
and
you get your thing, they'd probably already be taken.
and then there's the thing of as well that I would technically be able to teach psychology, but psychology jobs are gonna be few and far between. Yes, I might be able to go for an English post, depends on what level, I suppose. I might be able to do science depending on what level. I wouldn't dream of doing mathematics. But then things like geography, I only have a GCSE in geography, which I'm not sure what that equates to in America. It means I got it when I was 16. It's a qualification and I wasn't very good at it. So, like, those sorts of positions, I wouldn't necessarily be a good fit
Right.
because I wouldn't have the skills or the knowledge to be able to teach it.
Right. They would probably just put you into, well, I don't know. Wouldn't they also provide you with material to make sure that you're teaching it properly? No?
Probably. I mean, I know I have a couple of friends that are teachers, so perhaps it's something I could, ask them about.
Yeah, I'd
Like,
probably ask them and see what it's like for them and be like, well, this is what I have.
yeah,
How does that function, in that kind of job?
I have some primary school teaching behind me as well because I worked in a school for a year, so that's like elementary for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I worked in an elementary school for a year, so I have a little bit of that behind me. Um, but I don't have the official certification to be able to teach. That's what the PGCE would be, which I think allows me to teach up to college level.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
So
uh
so I could potentially teach in colleges.
yeah. The So that program, they will pay you, and then do you have to pay them back, or is it just they will pay you to earn that degree?
I'm pretty sure it's paid for by the government. Um, they give you a bursary, so you've got some money to live off,
Right.
and I think they cover the cost of the course.
Then do you even have to pay it back, or
I don't think so. I think with the PGC it works differently to like a master's. I think it's sort of like a scheme to get more teachers
yeah,
into the world.
it's to basically be like, hey, we're running out of teachers. We'll let you become one for free, basically. Pretty please.
Yeah, because I have student debt, but I don't earn enough to pay it back.
Yeah.
So, um, like I have to earn over 25,000, and even then, it's only like £60 a month or something. It really depends on how much you earn.
Right.
Um, but I don't think you have to pay the PGCE back. And if you do, it's probably the same thing as my bachelor's, where you don't pay anything back until you earn over a certain threshold.
Right.
And even then, it's only like a really small percentage of your monthly wage.
Yeah. That sounds actually pretty good. I mean, you know, even if I think even if the job opportunities around me weren't that good, I'd probably still
Y-
do it just because, once you get that, then that's something that you have for the rest of your life and, you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's not something that can be taken off me.
yeah, and it's as you said that, you're likely to teach all the way up to college level, so, all of those previous grade levels are also open up to you at that point. And
Yeah,
if it's, because I don't exactly understand the terminology uh, with that, but it kind of just sounds like a similar program over here. I didn't really learn too much about it, but they basically said that, they will put you through a teaching school so that you're able to teach classes and such. But I know a lot of teachers they don't have the exact like knowledge in that. They usually just earn the ability to teach, and then uh, the school provides them the supplies to teach to the students. And it's usually like a program. They you could like you've been through school, right? Right.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you know, you just gotta think about how your teachers were. Were some of them like really good in the profession they were teaching, or did they just seem like they were kind of like picked up off the streets somewhat?
I, I would say most of them, if not all of them, were really good.
Yeah, but there's still those like few where it's like,
The odd few, like, what are you doing here?
yeah, like what are you sure you're supposed to be teaching this? Oh, and I think
Yeah,
that's what happens is that you're just earning the ability to teach, and then the school or the system you go to work for will uh basically I think it's as long as you understand the subject, you know. I think
yeah.
I think you're good. As long as you're not less capable than the students. You're like, well, I don't understand what this means, I think
I don't
good
think I
option.
would teach at college level because I would only really be able to teach sociology, psychology, and communication and culture.
Yeah.
And because it's been so long since I studied those, probably a lot of the information I know is probably out of date. So I would probably just stick to primary and or secondary school, which is up to the age of 16.
Yeah.
I think that would be more suited to my abilities because you know, some schools offer psychology as a GCSE, so I could certainly teach psychology to up to the age range of 16. I could teach sociology up to the age of 16. I could teach English or even science up to certain science anyway, up to the age of 16. Like I think there are definitely fields within secondary and primary school that I'd be pretty adept at teaching. College, I'm not so sure. I'm not that confident in my ability with college, but
Right.
definitely up to the age of 16, there's probably a fair few subjects that I would be relatively good enough to teach, provided as well that I'm given the material and I can devise lesson plans and whatnot. I think that there's potential there for me to do a good job.
Yeah. I think so as well. And I would probably just start with messaging those people that you do know who have done it or are in teaching, and maybe ask them about the program and what they think about it.
Yeah.
Because it definitely sounds like It's an opportunity where you don't have to sacrifice anything for it. It's not like you have to pay them back. It's not like you have to immediately get a job in that after you earn the specification. No, you can
Yeah.
just it's just it's kind of like a bit of a driver's license. No, it's just credentials. It's certification that you are allowed to do this extra activity or this extra ability of yours. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would probably open up more job opportunities as well. In terms of just not, because I have the ability to teach.
Yeah.
There are probably some transferable skills that you pick up through teaching that would be quite preferable in some jobs, like maybe like careers advice and things like that. Like there's probably like transferable skills from doing a PGCE that might be quite positive, not directly through the line of teaching, but it could be transferable in other job areas.
I would say anything that requires like a manager position, especially because it's essentially the same. It's taking charge of other people and making sure they understand the job they're doing or the you know requirements and such. I think that's really good.
Yeah, because you're literally managing, up to 30 individuals.
Yeah, exactly. It's I think that's uh it's a good program by the sounds of
Hmm.
it if they're willing to pay for everything.
Yeah, and there's a, a university um in Swansea that offers it, but that's only one bus and one train ride away from me. So it's not, and I don't think you have to actually go into university that often. I think it's like 1 day a week or something. And the rest of the days you work at a school that they put you in.
Yeah.
So, and I would assume that they would try to give me a position that's local to me because it's a comprehensive school 5 minutes up the road from where I live. So I would assume that they would try to position me somewhere like there where
Yeah.
it's not difficult for me to get to.
Yeah,
Excuse.
exactly. I think you'll you'll be given especially if you have a degree. Because let me ask you this: does the program does it have any intro requirements or anything like that? Do you have to
Yeah,
have
you have to have a bachelor's degree, which I have.
right?
It's
So,
considered postgraduate study.
oh, that's actually good. And
Yeah.
yeah, because I feel like um you know even if there are some people who are also doing this as well, I think that um I think you'll still have a pretty good opportunity compared to say having to try and apply for a job at like a grocery shop or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It at least takes away quite a bit of the competition you might have to deal with getting a job in that kind of field.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I agree with it. I agree. Good.
Anything you want to ask? Anything you want to dive into?
Uh, I'm not really too sure. Apparently, my food's gonna be here in 10 minutes. So
Uh-oh.
yeah,
Oh, spaghetti.
spaghetti time. I think we talked pretty good. I'd say.
Mm-hmm. I
I
would
th-
agree.
I think maybe I'll I'll be able to go a little bit more deeper into your mind next. Be like,
Yeah.
now that we've discussed about your family scenarios, let's go further into that. You know,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think there's a few things to uncover and to kind of question about.
Hmm.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Not really. I
Well, then,
don't think of anything at the top of my head.
Well, then I say we end the podcast here for now.
Okie dokie, sounds good to me.
And since this is your third time appearing on one, uh, you now get to have a custom made little avatar thing.
Yay!
You're-
I'm finally important.
Now you're gonna have to message me what what you want exactly. Let's come on. Let's keep it simple, okay? You know me. I'm pretty shit at 3D, okay?
I know that picture of that model of Ben you did was pretty accurate. I mean, he didn't really look like an egg, but the face part was very accurate.
Yeah, the bag and it has a time crystal stuck in its head.
I actually said to Ben, why you an avocado? He said, what you want about? He said, I'm an egg. I was like, no, you have a little green sprout coming out of your head. He was like, that's a time crystal. I was like, really? I was like, oh yeah.
I have to improve on his model, but you just
Oh no, it wasn't that. It was just that I only like quickly glanced at it and I was like, but why are you like an avocado or something? It's like I'm an egg. I was like, eggs don't have green sprouts coming out their head.
yeah. You're gonna have
But
to tell me what you want to be.
I want to be like a Lara Croft character.
You want to be a Laura Croft character? Alright,
Yeah.
I think I can probably do it. Just gotta
It has to be the PS1 version.
has to
Or
be
it's all
What?
PS1
pixelated.
blocky version. Yeah,
Polygon tip.
Yeah, yeah.
polygonal boobs.
Every 10-year-old's wet dream.
I'll put some big British teeth on it as well.
Oh no.
Yeah, big British teeth.
I don't really have very good teeth. I have very British teeth.
Well, then there you go. It'll be accurate. All right. Are we ending the podcast right?